Breaking news, breaking news. In the United Nations Security Council has just unanimously adopted a resolution outlining a peace process in Syria. Now get this, the 15-member Nation Council reached a rare agreement on the issue of peace in Syria in a session that just voted in New York at the United Nations tonight. The resolution endorses talks between the Syrian government and the opposition forces, which would be the Free Syrian Army, and they're to start talking in early January, as well as a ceasefire. Now, the Syrian war, which is heading toward its fifth year, has killed more than 250,000 people and displaced millions, according to the United Nations. However, disagreements still remain over the future of Syrian President Bashar Assad. The United States, the United Kingdom, and France all call for Assad to go, and that he's lost all ability to lead the nation of Syria. But Russia and China, however, argued against that requirement for Mr. Assad to leave power as a precondition for talks. The resolution itself makes no mention of what his future role will be. There is also disagreement over the definition of which arms groups fall within the remit of the ceasefire. Now, according to several analysis by the chief international correspondent, a stubborn gridlock in the United Nations Security Council has long blocked any steps toward a political resolution of Syria's devastating war. For years, everyone insisted there was no military solution. Nobody made any effort, really, to achieve it. But the United Nations' first envoy, Kofi Annan, bitterly blamed the world's body when he quit in 2012 after only 1 year in the job on this UN envoy to Syria. His successor, though, Lakhdar Brahimi, frequently beseeched the council to do more and often apologized to the Syrian people for failing them. Now the UN envoy's staff is tasked with organizing the Syrian talks. Unanimous vote is a crucial step forward, but the goal of a credible, inclusive, and non-sectarian governance within 6 months is hugely ambitious. President Assad's supporters will welcome a UN resolution that does not mention his role. Russia's growing diplomatic and military weight in this conflict helped achieve that compromise. But for the opposition and their allies, it will continue to be an issue that will block progress every step of the way. Now, the United States U.S. Secretary of State John F. Kerry, chairing this session, said that the resolution sent a clear message to all concerned that the time is now to stop the killing in Syria. The resolution we just reached is a milestone because it sets specific goals and specific time frames. Now, the resolution calls for a ceasefire that should be implemented in parallel with the negotiating talks. However, actions against groups considered terrorist organizations would not be affected. So in other words, Al-Qaeda, Al-Nusra, ISIS, they're not affected by this. I guess Russia and Iran, United States and France and England, and now Germany to some degree, and Canada a little bit, would all kind of take a step back. And we're talking now that Russia with Assad's army would talk to the Free Syrian armies with the Americans. And that's good, but here's the problem. ISIS is still out there murdering and killing people, so somebody's got to keep fighting ISIS while you're having... at the end of the day, even if the Assad and his army comes to an agreement with the Free Syrian army, and they say, let's have peace and stop the war, it doesn't stop ISIS. It doesn't prevent ISIS from continuing their reign of terror upon the people of Syria. So you got to deal with ISIS and quit fighting with one another. Come together, and everybody's got to fight against ISIS. I mean, that's really the only way that there's ever going to be any kind of peaceable solution to this. I'm telling you, this is really, I'm afraid this is not worth the paper it's written on. Because unless we deal with ISIS, unless the world deals with ISIS, this 15-0 vote is useless. Because, number one, the Free Syrian Army is not going to sit down and negotiate with Assad and let Assad remain in power. I can tell you right now that's not going to go very well. And number two, nobody is dealing with ISIS. I mean, face it, ISIS is still the loose cannon and is the white elephant in the room. And until it's dealt with, you're going to continue to see the prophecy of Isaiah 17:1 and the destruction of Damascus. And there's another problem. When this starts, when it falls apart, and it will, this ceasefire will not hold. It will fall apart. When it does, then the war will really get ugly. And that's what I'm concerned about. I love the idea of having peace, but you got to deal with ISIS first. I mean, first and foremost, you have to crush ISIS. And then you get the Free Syrian Army and Assad's government together and see if they can work it out. Maybe they can, but maybe they can't. Maybe Assad has to go. And so to unify the nation, you'd have to have a new president. And it cannot be his last name, Assad. Well, give Russia a lot of credit, though. Really, it is Russia's military force that's bringing this to the table. Because if Russia had not got in there and helped, this would go on. Because Obama has just done nothing but bring chaos and has never offered any kind of plan that could achieve peace. None. And that's just the way it is. I'll be back for more current world events and how they relate to Bible prophecy. This is definitely biblical prophecy here. Now, there is one thing you need to know in the Bible. The Bible does talk about, in Isaiah chapter 19, and we know that's the burden of Egypt and everything happened in Egypt. But toward the end of that chapter, it says, believe it or not, Egypt, Syria, and Israel will form an alliance and build a highway that will go from Cairo, Egypt, to Damascus. And these three nations will somehow come together and have peace. Think about that for a while. It's in the Bible. God bless all of you. Give your life to Jesus Christ. We're living in the last days.